was a Jewish philosopher, theologian by the name of Abraham Herschel. And many years ago, he wrote one sentence that I've always held on to. He said that you can summarize the whole of the Old Testament in one word. And that one word is the word remember. The people of God in the Old Testament were constantly invited to remember their own history and to remember the times that God had worked in their life together as a nation. So for example, you can see in Deuteronomy chapter 8, if you want to read that chapter, how the Jewish people were challenged to remember how God had worked with them over the years. When you come to the New Testament, it's Mary who teaches us so much about the remembering life. Just after she had given birth to Jesus, and you can read about this in Luke chapter 2, there are 2 verses in that chapter where we read these words, that Mary treasured all these things that had happened and thought deeply about them. And what she was doing there was that she was simply remembering again the things that had happened in her life and where God had been active in it. And so I want to suggest, friends, that one of the most important things that you and I can do as followers of Christ is to develop what I call a Christian memory, to remember our own lives and to see where God has been active in our lives. Now, one of the practical ways in which we can do this is through the practice of reflection, learning to reflect on our own lives and to try see where God has been at work in our lives. I remember when I was training for the ministry, I had a wonderful mentor, and he always used to say to me these words, "Trevor, we don't learn from experience. We only learn when we reflect upon experience." I've never forgotten those words. And those words by my mentor have encouraged me over the years to develop a way of life that is reflective, that if I really want to learn and grow and open myself up to the transformation that God wants to do in my life, one of the ways in which I do that is I reflect upon my life to see what God is up to. Now, there are a number of ways in which we can reflect upon our lives. Perhaps I can suggest 2 ways that may be helpful. The one way is to reflect back over a segment of time. For example, maybe you come to the end of a year, or the end of a month, or the end of a week, and then to take that segment of time and to reflect on it, to see the ups and the downs, times when perhaps you were very happy, times when perhaps you were sad, times perhaps when you felt alive, times when you perhaps felt very dead. And very often as we develop this practice of reflection, we're able to see where God is moving in our life and where God is inviting us to go forward. Or, and I really want to recommend this, we can do it on a daily basis. I learned this from a person by the name of Ignatius, and he speaks of the examen of consciousness, that at the end of each day we reflect on the day. We give thanks for all the gifts that have been given. We see where we've been most alive. We see perhaps where we have failed God. We perhaps look forward to the next day and we look at the help that perhaps we are needing in order to live tomorrow more faithfully. So that's another way. I remember when our children were growing up, often at the dinner table, we would sit around at supper, and then I would invite the family to look back over the day and for all of us to maybe share a happy moment and a sad moment. Because often in those moments, God is speaking to us and God is at work. So can I extend this invitation to you? We are called to develop a Christian memory, to remember our lives. And we remember our lives in the faith that God is deeply, deeply, deeply present in our lives, always. And one of the most practical ways in which we can develop a remembering life is to develop the practice of reflection. We can either do it, as I was saying, over a segment of time, or we can do it on a daily basis. And that is my invitation to you. Perhaps I can end with a very simple illustration. If you're going to drive a car on a very, very busy road, you need two kinds of windows. You need the front window, but you also need a rear view window. And what I'm suggesting is that we take some time as we drive our lives down the busy highways of our life, to take some time to look through that rear view window. We can't look through it all the time, but we need to look through it now and then in order to go forward in a way that is safe and sound and faithful. God bless you as you work with this practice in your own life.